All right, guys, we made it back to another video. Finally, I know it's been a handful of weeks. You might have forgot about me, forgot about us, but we're still here. We're still talking about NASCAR DFS, even if there's only a handful of hours until the slate locks. So, thank you guys for your patience, your support. Appreciate you guys being here, and being part of the channel. So, when we talk about North Wilkesboro, we have the Cup Series racing here tonight. We have 450 laps, which will be interesting. That is a lot of laps around this track. So because of that, it's going to be a very high scoring slate. You're really going to have to nail those lap leaders if you're going to have any chance to hitting that cash line. So for me, I'm more focused on a lap leader than a guy that provides per place differential upside. And it's a little interesting looking at the starting grid because qualifying got canceled because of the weather, but we were able to get a practice session in. So the grid set by the metric, which was basically Atlanta, and then we have practice data to go off of, which is nice. At least we have that. And this is the first points race in the next gen era at this track. We have raced here for the All Star race and stuff in the past. So looking here, we got Hamlin, Blaney, Larson, and Bell, and all of them start towards the front except for Larson. So I'll say my two favorite plays out of this range are going to be Blaney and Bell. If I had to pick two, those are the two I'm going to pick. A, they're both really good on the short tracks, and B, they were fast in practice and have the track position. So Blaney has the track position. He starts first. He's going to hit the gas first. He was very fast in practice, and he ranks first amongst all active drivers if you look over the last 10 short tracks with two wins every single time he's finished in the top 10 and an average finish of 3.6. That's pretty good. And then for Christopher Bell, Bell was actually at the top of the charts for every single practice metric except for the 5 lap. But he was P1 in the single, the 10, the 15, the 20, the 25, and the 35 lap average or 30 lap averages in practice. He starts up near the front. He's going to have track position. So when we talk about lap leaders, I really want to prioritize Blaney and Bell tonight as my primary lap leaders. I think you can play them together. I think you can play one of them. Outside of those guys, who else am I interested in? I think Denny Hamlin makes a lot of sense. He had practice times inside the top 10. He's great at managing his tires. He's a little bit more of a tournament play, I would say, than Blaney and Bell just because of where he starts. So he has a slightly tougher path to lead laps. These laps are going to click off very quickly. And then you have Larson. So I like Larson with the caveat that I think you have to pair him with an early lap leader like a Blaney or Bell. Larson was very fast. He was actually second fastest in practice, only behind Christopher Bell. So he could theoretically lead in the middle or later portion of this race. He should move forward. He gives you a lot of place differential upside. It's just going to take him some time or strategy or the cautions for him to, get that track position that he needs. And then you got William Byron down here too. You can't ignore him. He'll probably be the lowest owned of all those guys that we just talked about. But he was actually the third quickest in practice, only behind Bell and Larson. So I really like him a lot for tournaments. Decent starting position still gives you some place differential upside without being like buried deep in the field. He has 2 wins and 5 top 10s over the last 10 short tracks as well too. So there's a lot of data that says, hey, he should be a pretty good tournament play. Um, I'm just not getting the Chase Elliott, me being so high on all these other drivers up here. It's kind of like a high low, and I don't really have too many medium guys up top, which is rare. But Elliott didn't really have great pace in practice compared to those he's priced around. And for his performance, he also ranks lower across a lot of the other guys up here if you look at the last 10 short tracks. Um, I like Logano a lot for tournaments too, just kind of like William Byron. He was around a fifth place car for pretty much all the practice metrics, which is pretty strong. And if we look at his last 10 short tracks, he has 4 top 5s and 7 top 10s. So like that. A guy I do not like is going to be Tyler Reddick. His practice times were in the 20s. Short tracks just really aren't his thing. Not really his strongest track type. He only has 2 top 10s in the last 10 short track races that we've been at. But I like Chase Briscoe. So, if you can't pay up for Larson, you can get some cheaper place differential on the slate. And I think Chase Briscoe makes a lot of sense for that reason. So he gives you good PD upside. He doesn't have the same practice times that Larson did, but he's significantly cheaper. And he's kind of doing the same type of task for your lineup that you're asking Larson to do. You're not really playing Larson to be a lap leader, but if he is, sure, we'll take it. 450 laps is a lot. There's a lot of racing tonight, so anything can happen. And Chase Briscoe's finished in the top 10, 50% of the time if we look at the last 10 short tracks. Hocevar is another guy I'm not getting to. Yes, he starts up near the front, but I'm so high on all the guys basically right around him that I just can't play everybody, so I'm not getting the Hocevar. Didn't really have good speed in practice. His results of the last 10 short tracks aren't very promising either. Has an average place finish of 18th if we look at those 10 races. Ty Gibbs, I like him a lot for a lap leader, a cheaper kind of contrarian lap leader. You can get him a nice discount off of the Blaney and Bell chalk. He was also top 10 in practice, and he has 5 top 5 finishes over the last 10 short tracks that we've been at. So I like Ty Gibbs a lot for tournaments. I'm not getting Chris Buescher. He's just struggled on the short tracks recently. He only has one top 10 in the last 10 short tracks. His practices were in the 20s, so it doesn't really look like he's going to get a top 10 tonight. Chastain did have speed, and I'm interested to see if people are just going off practice times, he might get some ownership. The issue with Chastain is he failed inspection 3 times. So he loses his crew chief, he loses his pit stall selection, and then to start the race, he actually has to come down and do a pass-through penalty under green. And if you do that at North Wilkesboro, you're easily going to go 1 lap down, potentially 2, and you're going to get buried in the field. So with how many guys are going to go laps down, he might just get stuck. So he kind of has a hard path for his way forward, even if he does have a fast car. Wallace and Priest and Keselowski, I think all these guys are kind of in the same category. They all give you some place differential upside, kind of different reasonings for all of them. So Wallace is cheap, starts in the second half of the field. Practice times aren't great. He has 3 top 10s in the last 10 short track races, an average finish of 20th over those 10. So he should move forward. Ryan Priest is kind of our short track specialist. That's kind of his specialty. Average finish of 14th, which is much better than Bubba Wallace over the last 10. But he doesn't start as far back, so he kind of gives you less place differential upside. And then Keselowski's right in the middle. He's interesting because if you look at practice, it says don't play him. He was in the 30s. However, if you look at the last 10 short tracks, just in general, he has 5 top 10s with an average finish of 10th. So, what type of Brad Keselowski you going to get tonight? It sounds like he's either going to be a boom or bust type of play. So I will certainly have some ownership to him. Suarez, I'm really just not getting to. 23rd place average finish if we look at the last 10 short tracks. If we look at practice as well, too, he's in the second half of the field. Austin Cindric, pretty cool paint scheme that he's running this weekend. Love when teams do that type of stuff. And for DFS purposes, I like him a lot for tournaments. His practice times are right around where he starts. Kind of looks like a top 10 contender. So I like him for GPPs tonight. Josh Berry and Alex Bowman, I'm getting to these guys a lot depending on my lineup construction. So usually getting one of them or sometimes both of them in a lineup. Berry's another kind of a short track specialist like Ryan Priest. These are typically the types of tracks that we have interest in him. He does have 4 top 10s over the last 10 short tracks. His practice times were in the teens, so he should be able to move forward. And then Alex Bowman kind of surprised me. He was pretty fast in practice. He was actually top 3 in the 20, the 25, and the 30 lap averages. So really good place differential upside, just like, Josh Berry. So I like both those guys. SVG is interesting. He's kind of an aggressive tournament play, I would say. He did get some extra laps in the Truck Series race, which is always, makes you feel a little bit better if you are playing him. His practice times were around 10th, so that's right around where he starts. So he should be able to maintain that track position, but it's going to be a long race tonight. And if he gets buried back in the field, I am a little concerned about him. Eric Jones starts a little bit too far forward for me. He should drop back. His practice times were in the 30s. Zane Smith had good practice times in the teens, so, it suggests he should be able to move forward, gives you some place differential upside if you need a guy down here. McDowell and Austin Dillon, kind of around where they might finish, I would say, is probably their ceiling. So I'm a little concerned about that. Not really a ton of interest there. Austin Hill starts deep, likely goes down a lap early in this race. Not really going to end your day because he starts so deep, but probably going to cap his upside because of that. And you could say the same thing with Zilich and Herbst as well too, but you're going to need some guys down here. And Zilich, he had pretty good speed in practice. It seemed like he fell off a little bit as the run went on, but he was 13th in the single lap, 6th in the 10, 12th in the 15, and 23rd in the 20 lap. So starting 32nd, I will certainly take those practice times. Riley Herbst, pretty good practice speed, 14th in the single lap, and top 10 in all the averages, including second in the 30 lap average. Not everyone ran that for reference, but for a guy that starts 34th, that's pretty good speed, and I will certainly take that. No, I'm not really getting to, you know, single lap speed in practice was slow, but he did rank 23rd in the 10 lap and 17th in the 20 lap. So if everyone's going to play Zilich and Herbst, maybe you can pivot and play Gregson down here. Todd Gillen has decent track position to start. Might be able to, hold on to the lead lap, which should help him, but his practice speeds were kind of, a little further back, so it's not a ton of upside there. AJ generally runs better on the short tracks, but this team just didn't really have pace, which is a concern for me, even though they start so deep. But because of they start so deep, they really can't lose you points either. So, he's okay if you have to go that low. And then really after that, I really don't want to go too much lower. Like same thing with John Hunter Nemechek. You make the same thing with Todd Gillen, has decent track position, but his practice times aren't that good. Ricky Stenhouse probably runs in the 20s. Custer, maybe a tournament play. He's pretty good on the short tracks, but starting 20th is definitely a concern. Ty Dillon, starts a little bit too far forward for me. And even though it's a short track, I'm not, who knows? We'll see. But I'm not anticipating like a super chaotic carnage type of race. And I think those are the types of races where Cody Ware and Chad Fincham have a chance. So thank you guys. I know I haven't been around the last few weeks, just different family things going on or been out of town traveling, which, selfishly, it's part of the fun of doing this for fun. That's why I don't charge anything or commit because, I put out as much as I can put into it. So I appreciate you guys being here. If you've watched all the way through to the end, obviously you guys are big NASCAR DFS fans. So best of luck tonight. Enjoy building those lines or tinkering on those lines. Enjoy the race, and maybe we'll catch you next weekend. Oh, and if you guys want access to this, you can go over on X. It's at Fast Cars FM. So thank you guys again, and we'll catch you next time.